Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly program about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital. Always a pleasure to have your company. Now, this show is normally an interview. I have somebody in, usually from a whole range of different places, but this week I've decided I wanted to do a show just with me chatting away. I've picked up an excellent article from the New Daily, and I get one of these every day, and there's a few nice things about finances and the like. And there's a really good article that's just come out for the end of the financial year: Super Pay and Pensions, 10 major changes that are set to start in July. Now, very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have somebody from Service Australia come along and talk about some of these changes. And it's always great that, we're being picked up by government now that the show has gone national with the Community Radio Network and through the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia. And it's starting to get noticed, and we're really pleased about that, because what we're trying to do is get some education out into the big wide land and make sure that people are as financially literate as possible. And so with these changes, I thought it really important to get out there, and rather than having somebody else necessarily chat this way or the other, I'm simply going to be quoting out of this excellent article from the New Daily and talking about these summations of 10 major changes that are occurring from the 1st of July. Now, the first one, and again, you hear me harping on about superannuation all the time, is around the superannuation guarantee. It is now set to rise from 10.5 to 11% from the 1st of July. So even if the pay is for the previous period, for example, I have people that I pay, and their pay for June will actually have the new superannuation guarantee levy of 11% instead of 10.5 apply, because it starts from the 1st of July. Now, one of the important factors that occurred last year, and in fact occurred beforehand with the previous government, was that the $400 minimum was abolished. Now, why is this important? You hear me here with Philippa Hunt from Wise Girls Money all the time talking about the fact that women are dudded in many situations. And when we're talking about some of the lowest paid people in this country, they tend to be women. And so this abolition of the minimum amount that gets levied for superannuation guarantee is a huge bonus now, not just to young people, but to women at large. And so this 11%, and it's going to be going up another 0.5% for the next couple of years to a maximum of 12 in 2025. So ladies and gentlemen, get used to this. Every year, this is going to go up another 0.5%. Now, we keep talking about the superannuation balances and where we're at, and remembering that we are now in $3 trillion worth of national assets that are there in people's bank accounts, ready to help them retire without having to go onto an old age pension. And having looked at my mum, who passed away last year, living on an old age pension is nothing to rave about. And this is why I guess when I read a lot of commentary about people complaining about, my old age pension is going to be impacted because I'm getting too much money. Seriously, if you are hoping and I guess living to want to live on a Centrelink pension when you retire, you got your goals all wrong. I got to tell you, you've got your goals all wrong. So moving on. Pay rises. Now, we have a left-leaning government in power these days, and after 9 years of the previous mob who suggested that having low wages was baked into their economic solutions, I guess we are talking about inflation, and some businesses stepping up and saying, well, these increase in wages is what's going to affect inflation. And yet there is so much empirical data out there suggesting otherwise, that it's really corporate profits that have really inflated all the prices that we are paying at the till, at the power pump, at the power registry and the like. And so I guess when we're looking at the lowest paid people in the country finally getting a rise, and we're talking, ladies and gentlemen, here, the minimum award rate now is $23.23 an hour. And if you are making that, please, I just don't want to hear from businesses telling me that they're doing it tough when they are paying workers at 23 odd bucks an hour, and they're doing it tough, particularly when you see how rents and simple price. I mean, if you see what's happening at grocery stores, my word, what's happened in the last 6 to 9 months, it's really, it just turns one's eyelashes, really does. The prices are really ramping up quite a lot. So we're now talking about the lowest paid workers will now earn $3 more per hour than 2 years ago. And for mine, I think that's a great thing. For no other reason, let me tell you, ladies and gents, that when the lowest paid workers are getting paid more, every dollar that they get paid ends up back in the economy. And so when the rich start worrying about, oh my God, where am I going to make my money from? The more poorer people have to spend, the more you make money, ladies and gentlemen, if you own a business. So having the lowest paid people in the country being paid more is actually good for the economy. And it's better that they start getting that money rather than necessarily, when we've got these tax cuts, which I'm still scratching my head, whether we're going to be getting these stage 3 tax cuts coming through at the end of this financial year that we're in now. I just sit there and scratch my head because the highest paid workers don't always necessarily spend the money. Now, moving on to the next one, we're on to number 3. Age pension eligibility. It's fascinating to me to watch the news from Europe, and having been there recently and visiting Italy, I'm just bemused at the kind of things that we're seeing now occurring in here locally with the retirement age. And we are also looking at our retirement age now legislated that it is going up. So Australians will have to wait longer to receive the age pension. From the 1st of July, you must be 67 years old, born on or after the 1st of January 1957 to be eligible for the age pension. So with this in mind, that means the eligibility for this pension will steadily be rising by 6 months every 2 years, or it has been since 2017 to reach 67 this year. So far, there are no plans to raise this age anymore. Now, the interesting factor is you would have seen possibly in the news where the French were writing that their particular age pension for the age was going up from 60 to 62, and they were having absolute heart attacks about that. Ours is now at 67, and there are no further plans at this point in time. And I think it'd be very difficult for a left-leaning centre-right or centre-left government that the Albanese government leads to be raising this retirement age any further at this point in time. Fascinating, though, I must say. The end of lower pension drawdown rates. What does this actually mean? What this means is during COVID, ladies and gentlemen, what we did, I guess, was to be able to boost savings was that the government of the day, and rightly so, I might add, put in a policy that said to retirees, you don't have to draw down as much out of your pension as what you would normally do. And again, I find the debate around self-managed super funds and superannuation tiring at times because there are too many people that don't know what they're talking about. And when we are talking about super and the drawdowns, the superannuation system, ladies and gents, by design means that by the time you reach your early 90s, you should have no money in superannuation. It's done by design. It is there for you to have a comfortable retirement. It's not there for intergenerational wealth transfer, which, again, I see the hyperbole around that discussion, which drives me insane, I've got to tell you. And so the government temporarily halved the minimum pension drawdown rates for 2019 through to 2023, which led to retirees collectively saving up billions of dollars, a move which means they end up paying the super fund more for looking after their money. So that 50% reduction in the minimum pension drawdown rate will no longer apply from the 1st of July this year. So what does that mean? It means if you are retired and you have a pension fund, you now have to draw down money out of your pension fund back to the levels that they were before COVID came along. So remember, by design, ladies and gentlemen, you are not supposed to have any superannuation left once you reach your early 90s. And given that the average age of a person living here in this country is roughly 83 years old, the design actually looks pretty darn good. So moving on, more flexible paid parental leave. The current entitlement to 18 weeks paid parental leave will be combined with the current dad and partner pay entitlements to 2 weeks pay. This means partnered couples will be able to claim up to 20 weeks paid parental leave between them. Each partner must take at least 2 weeks leave, either separately or at the same time, although some exceptions may apply. And again, given that I'm going to have somebody from Services Australia regularly on our program now, at least once a quarter, I might actually pose this as a question. We might actually talk about these particular payments. Now, parents who are single at the time of their claim can access the full 20 weeks. So parental leave for both parents will be combined. The whole payment is now flexible, so eligible workers can claim it in multiple blocks until the child turns 2. And the requirement to return to work to be eligible for the entitlement has also been removed. So if you're a parent out there and you are looking for paid parental leave, it's got a lot better and a lot easier to access. And I think certainly those changes affect workers whose babies are born or placed in care on or after the 1st of July of this year. And in same breath, when we're talking about childcare, the childcare subsidy has also increased. I guess the downside to this great news is that just about every childcare centre in the country has also raised its prices to coincide with this increase in the subsidy. Call me cynical. Yeah, I'm a little cynical, given the fact that when you're talking about this sector, ladies and gentlemen, and believe me, I'd love to have a childcare centre owner come onto the program, because their workers are amongst the lowest paid in the country, lowest paid in the country. And yet these businesses are making a ton of cash. I mean, their profitability is through the roof, and they keep crying poor when we've got these subsidies coming in from the government. I'm scratching my head. I have to understand this business model better, because right now, by all accounts, these guys and ladies that run childcare centres should be doing really, really well. So the argument that says they've got to raise their rates simply because their subsidy goes up, that subsidy was supposed to be for parents, not for the operators. So from the 10th of July, if your family earns under $530,000, you'll get an increase in the childcare subsidy. Families earning up to $80,000 will get an increase in the CCS amount from 85 to 90%. And if you earn over 80K, you'll get the subsidy starting from 90%. And this will go down by 1% for each $5,000 of your family earnings after that. So if you have more than one child aged 5 or under, you can still get a higher rate for one or more of the children. But again, 80K seems to be that cutoff point. And as I've said, many families may have to pay more for childcare as childcare centres have raised their fees. Surprise, surprise. So look, we're halfway through this list. It's time for a short break here on Dollars and Making Sense. I'm Ray Treverson, your host. And we have a short announcement on our general advice disclaimer, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments, and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels, or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform, or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog. And we're back here on Dollars and Making Sense. I'm Ray Treverson from OTG Capital, your host. And this is a weekly show about finance, money, and investing, broadcast nationally on the Community Radio Network and also on Radio Northern Beaches and YouTube and a whole range of other places. Now, for the YouTube people, I'm sorry, we seem to be having some technical issues. The video keeps cutting in and out. So for those of you in Radio Land, no impact whatsoever because you don't get to see my ugly muggins. But for those that are there on YouTube, I think we're going to be going between a visualizer and a little graphic of me talking into my microphone. But let's carry on. We're halfway through our list of the 10 changes that are occurring in Australian economics and finance policy from the 1st of July 2023. Now, eligibility changes for home buying schemes in an attempt to address the housing affordability crisis. Eligibility criteria for the first home and regional schemes mean permanent residents will be eligible to apply. Previously, the schemes were only available to married couples, single people, and people in de facto relationships who had never owned a home. So from the 1st of July, this is really good news. Friends, siblings, and other family members will be able to jointly apply for first home guarantee and regional first home guarantees, as will non-first home buyers who have not owned property in the past 10 years. There are 35 new places in the first home guarantee and 10,000 places in the regional first home buyer guarantees. Now, this is great news. So this is where friends can get together, bring together a bit of a syndicate. And certainly, I mean, I've got 3 kids that hopefully, my wife and I will look to see what we can do to help. But these home buyer grants are fabulous. And hey, I certainly made use of mine 30 plus odd years ago. I was also in the Defence Forces, and I made use of the Defence Service Home Loan at that time because, believe it or not, even though you may look at me as being a boomer, it was difficult for us to buy a home back in the day as well. I don't disclaim, though, it certainly is far harder today than it certainly was when my wife and I were out there looking to purchase a place. I guess a bit more bad news. This is not the kind of increase you want to be seeing, but energy bills are set to increase. From the 1st of July, residential electricity customers on standard retail plans in New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, and Southeast Queensland will see price rises of up to, wait for it, 24.9%, depending on their region. Small business customers in these states are facing increases up to 28.9%, depending on their region. At the same time, households will receive some energy bill relief as part of a partnership between the Fed government and the state and territory governments. I think this is important to note, ladies and gents, that New South Wales, South Australia, and Tasmania, $500 will be made available to eligible households. In Victoria, $250 and plus a one-off direct payment through the power saving bonus payment. So that's a little bit more generous. And in Queensland, current recipients of Queensland's electricity rebate will receive another $700. All Queensland households will receive $550 through the new cost of living rebate. WA, you will receive $500 in addition to the existing rebate, as all other households receive currently $400 or will receive another $400. In the ACT, $175 per eligible household, and the large-scale feed-in tariff scheme will also lower the average bill by an additional $152. So go to the websites, check out the specific information, and also check with your services in your local state and territory on how you necessarily apply for these rebates and whether they're coupons or the like. But the savings are there, and so with the prices going up as substantially as they are, I know our electricity bill is enormous, and seeing potentially another 25% going on top of that, ouch is all I can say. Ouch, ouch, and more ouch. Moving on, an increase to Medicare levy surcharge threshold. The Medicare levy surcharge, MLS, is an additional tax on your income that you need to pay if your income is above a certain level and you don't have private health cover at all. So the income threshold will actually raise from $90,000 to $93,000. So guess what? That's actually going to save you a little bit of money. Doesn't sound like much, but $3,000, and again, that Medicare levy surcharge, I think actually applies. It's about 1 or 1 and a bit percent for the MLS. So yeah, that's going to start occurring from the 1st of July. So the income threshold will raise from 90 to 93 for a single person, and up to 186 from $180,000 for a family. So people earning up to these new income thresholds are exempt from paying the MLS if they don't have private health cover. The family income threshold increased by $1,500 to each MLS dependent child and after the first child. So this year marks the first time in 8 years the income threshold will rise. Man, does that sound like, oh, hang on, yeah, about the same time when the previous mob first got voted in. Gee, wow. And people sit there. And again, I keep on seeing the general discussions that I sometimes engage in. And my wife keeps on looking at me and saying, don't engage in with some of these trolls on social media, Ray, because it's just, if you get in the pigsty with the pigs, all you do is you end up getting dirty with the pigs. And I've got to say, some of them, wow. Now, for those of you in Queensland, rental affordability and availability are acute problems in Queensland. Man, I think it's around the country. But changes may give renters some peace of mind. From the 1st of July, landlords in Queensland will only be able to increase a tenant's rent once every 12 months, up from 6 months. So from the 1st of September, minimum housing standards will come into effect for new tenancies. So the standards will aim to ensure that Queensland rental properties are safe, secure, and functional. Man, doesn't it say something about some of the landlords out there that you've got to legislate that your rental properties are safe, secure, and functional, and include stipulations such as all rental properties must be weatherproof and structurally sound? Again, wow, you have to legislate this. I would have thought that was a given. But man, obviously, if a government needs to step in and start legislating this, then obviously it's not happening. And this includes a functioning cooktop if a kitchen is provided, and it be free from vermin, damp, and mold. Wow. And again, there are exceptions if this has been caused by a tenant. So again, I just sit there and wonder that, if a state or federal legislature has to come through and write laws that has to codify that kind of safety that becomes a standard, as a minimum standard, mind you, that the place that you rent is safe, it's clean, it's warm, and doesn't leak, and it doesn't have mold. I mean, really. And again, I read some absolute horror stories that are occurring in the rental markets, and I see on social media. Now, that's the 10 major changes that I wanted to cover off today. So let me quickly go over them. So the super contributions rise, and might I add that very soon, at the beginning of next financial year, you'll be getting your super paid in at the time of your pay, because again, I make my superannuation contributions for my employees. They go in every quarter. Why? Because that's the law. It says so. So the law is changing because people aren't paying. There are businesses out there that either don't bother, or they lose the money, or they don't put it aside. But every quarter, they're not doing what they're supposed to. So now the government has legislated from 25 or 26, I'd have to go back and check, that what's going to happen is your super gets paid at the same time your pay goes in. So that's, I think, a really good move. By the way, it also means you get 1 quarter worth of interest on that money that you weren't getting before. Another nice little adder, because remember, if your super's doing the right thing, it's compounding for you as well. So super contributions rise, and that little side one, very soon in the not too distant future, your businesses or your employers will be paying super at the time you earn your pay as well. So the next one, number 2, pay rises for minimum awards and award wages going up. Age eligibility, so for the pension, has now been staged for the past 4 years. It's now at its full tilt of 67. So if you're born on or after January the 1st, 1957, you have to be 67 years old to get the pension. Now, again, I might point out, ladies and gentlemen, what impact does this really have if you're retiring at 65 or 67? There's a huge number of people. If I remember my numbers correctly, there's roughly 950,000 people that currently are drawing job seeker payments. It might surprise you that anywhere upwards between 250 to 300,000 of that number are people aged 55 and over. So this extension of the pension from 65 to 67, which, by the way, the current mob didn't bring in, the previous mob did raise that. And I have to add, I don't think that Labor actually did too much staunchly defending the previous eligibility. But what it means is that you've got people spending another 2 years on the dole instead of getting an age pension. Now, there's a lot of stigma to people collecting the dole. Right or wrong? I think it's wrong, but it happens. I mean, it's just one of those things that if you're 65 at the moment, you're waiting another 2 years if you can't get a job at this age. And let me tell you, it's not that easy to get a job when you are the age that you, well, certainly I am. I'm 63, and I know plenty of people that have found it very darn hard. I found it hard the moment I turned 50. Wow. Pension drawdown rates. Remember, if you are drawing down the previous 3 years, you had that 50% discount. You now have to fully draw down each year the amount that is prescribed. And if you're not sure, check with your financial advisor or go to the Money Smart website or talk to your pension people that are handling your pension, because you are drawing down. And remember what I said before, it is by design. By the time you're in your early 90s, you are not supposed to have a superannuation balance left. And I'll continue to argue with people that keep on looking at super as being intergenerational wealth transfer. It's not there to hand down to your kids. Your super is there for you and you alone. Get that through your thick skulls, some people out there that keep wanting to argue with me. That's the reason why the current government actually legislated the purpose of superannuation. Geez, I feel like I'm ranting. Wow. Childcare subsidies have increased. Eligibility changes for home buying schemes have got better. So those of you that are thinking about syndicating and getting together to buy a place, which by the way is so common in Europe and the UK. I met two couples that were living together because they bought a place together in Chelsea because that's the only way they could do it. So it's what's happening and going to continue to happen here. Energy bills are increasing. Ouch. Anywhere between 25 to 30%. And Queensland has legislated rental reform that makes sure that if you rent somewhere in Queensland, it's safe, it's clean, weatherproof, and structurally sound. What a pleasure to the ears. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, as always, being on the show to talk to you about matters financial, income, all that good stuff. Welcome your feedback on socials, and please get in touch with me on email. Always, always willing to have a bit of a chat with people that want to talk and be sensible about it. We are always up for constructive criticism. So that's it for me for this week. You've been listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. Please search Dollars and Making Sense in your favorite podcast platform and check us out at our blog at otgcapital.com.au. And until next time, thanks for listening and watching. Adios.